David Edward and Barb Jones discuss Barb's Blood Prophecy book series.
Barb, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. Barb, if I understand this right, you have written not just one book, not just two books, not just three books, but you've written a book series, several novellas, and you actually have a new book coming out in 6 days. Is that right?
That is correct. And a brand new series as well.
Wow. Now we're going to talk specifically about the book that ended one of your trilogies, but I kind of want to jump into that whole process. And then also you write both kind of interesting fiction, and then you also have historical books, right? Historical fiction. So I'm going to talk a little bit about if there's anything different in the process to writing when you're actually trying to, and by historical fiction, I assume that means somehow related to something that actually happened, fiction. But we'll
Yes,
get
it kind
into
of goes off on a tangent.
But let's start with Blood Prophecy, which is a series you have that the last book, the third book, just came out about 1.5 years ago, right?
Yes,
Okay.
it
Well,
did.
why don't you tell us about Blood Prophecy?
Okay, so it is a trilogy so far, and we refer to the first trilogy as the Queen's Trilogy. And it
Okay.
is based on a prophecy that long stood basically the beginning of time. And it talked about a battle between good versus evil. And a queen will rise to unite the races. So when it comes to the paranormal genre, we're talking, the werewolves, the vampires, the witches, the demons, angels, all of that. But a vampire queen rises to the occasion armed with other members, and they have to defeat the villain.
Of course. So let's get into this a little bit, because the first book in this series came out 8 years ago. Is that right? 2014?
2014.
2014. And now when you wrote that book, did you know it was going to be a trilogy?
Not at first. It
Okay.
actually started as a dream. So, you go to bed one night, and I have a very vivid and active imagination. And my first book, Queen's Destiny, was a dream. And as I wrote it, I got to the point where, towards the ending, I'm like, oh, this cannot be done yet. So it kind of just said, we need to go into the second book. And the second book is Queen's Enemy. And that basically is the preparation for the upcoming battle. And then Queen's Ascension is the complete battle.
Wow.
Versus good versus evil.
So how has your writing process changed from that first book now, some number of years later, to the process you went through to write this final third book?
I let the characters talk to me. So they I have conversations with my characters. It's kind of funny if you think about it and you're out in public, but the characters in my books, basically all of my books, they talk to me. And so I'm what you call more of a pantser.
Yeah.
So I write, and to explain it to people, I just write by the seat of my pants. And to be honest with you, I never know how a book is going to start, and I never know how it's going to end.
Really?
I just start. I put words on paper and go from there.
That's interesting. I write in that same style, but the only thing I know is how it's going to start and how it's going to end. So we have the exact opposite. That's why this is so interesting to talk about. Well, and so you say, you've gotten more used to listening to the characters, and I know what that means. When I heard that before I'd written anything, I thought it was like one of the stupidest things I ever heard. But it's true. It's true. So with the first book. And then this book, how is that different? Help me understand how is it different knowing how to listen to them better now than when you first started?
In the beginning, it was kind of hard because it's like you're molding them, you're creating them, and you have to kind of, I don't outline what my characters are going to be like or how they're going to look, but I just have to develop them. And then as my writing progressed in the series, they just kind of talk to me a little bit more. So each chapter, the chapter talks to me. So it's, for example, like in one of the books, it's like, oh, the vampire needs a battle. So let's go have a battle.
Well, so for each book, there's the day before you're writing it, and then there's a day you start writing it. Is there any preparation you do? Or, are you kind of always writing? Do you have your own writing space? Do you have to set it up for a book? How do you get ready to write?
There's a lot of research. for a lot of my books. They have to be done just because I bring in time periods. So
Right.
like the Blood Prophecy brings in events from the past and certain historical figures. And I kind of molded what they did in real history to kind of tweak it to how they would play a part of the prophecy.
Okay.
And so there's, research that has to be done with the places and things like that. So there is the research. A lot of times I just do the research while I'm writing, or if I kind of have the concept, I just gather all my research materials at the same time.
Now, when you're in the process of writing a book, I mean, do you write in the mornings, do you write in the afternoons, do you write on a word count, do you write on a chapter count? How do you structure yourself from the first word you write to being finished?
I talk about this all the time when I go to Comic-Cons and I do panels. I write whenever. So, but I do try to dedicate at least 2 hours a day. So that's the only structured part of me.
Okay. Oh, that's legit. Yeah.
But I mean, I've written in the grocery store. I've written on a date. You name it. I have everything in my car, in my purse. That's why you have an iPhone. You have every capable means to jot an idea down. And
right.
But yeah, I've written in some crazy places.
That's great. So how did you? I mean, so when did you realize this was going to be a trilogy? It sounded like before you finished the first book. Is that right, or had you already finished the first book?
I was towards the end of the first book, and I was like, and I just kept going, and the characters were slowly, talking to me. I kind of became their mother. Like, what are you going to do today?
Right.
And so I just kind of realized, it just cannot end like this. It just needs to go on. I'm not done with my ideas.
did you plan that out? I guess is my point. I mean, you start opening? No, it's just.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I even thought the second book would be it for that, and then
I see.
No, it didn't, because I was like, I'm just not done with what needs to happen. So, and then, the funny part is, like, on the third book, you would think, okay, that's a trilogy, that's the end. But I've had readers, like, they would send me emails, or they would chit chat with me, and they would be like, I have tears. I don't want it to end. Right. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe it shouldn't end. Maybe I can continue it.
Wow.
And we have book 4.
Now you've written a bunch of novellas, short stories, basically,
yes.
in this same world, right?
Yes.
So how does that, where does that inspiration come from? How do you know when a short story is the way to go?
So my novellas are written, it's based on each of the main characters.
Okay.
And there's an event in that character's life that brought them into the prophecy. So all these characters didn't know each other before Queen's Destiny, before book 1. But there was an event that happened to them that, the prophecy would kind of say, hey, come on in. And I wrote about that event with each character.
Now, do you enjoy writing the short stories more than the novels, or is it all kind of the same? Or
it's all the same, but I do like the novels, just because my mind just kind of keeps going and going and going, like the Energizer Bunny.
Well, speaking of that, let's talk for a little bit, because I mentioned you have a book coming out in 6 days, and it's Henry and Anne, but that's historical for you. This is a significant evolution of your writing, or a different genre, a different style of writing. Why go this different direction?
It's a different genre, yes. But I'm a big fan of the Tudor history. So I love Henry VIII and Henry VII. This one in particular is Henry VIII and Anne of Cleves, the 4th wife.
Okay.
And I just, out of all of them, yes, she got to keep her head, so she was successful. But I just didn't like how it ended for her. So based on what had happened with the annulment, I kind of gave her a different ending.
Fun.
A happier ending.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to go ahead and confess my ignorance. I knew that the Henrys and their wives' heads were a story, but I didn't know the details too much beyond that. I guess I have to. I'm an American. What am I going to? I don't know. History is what was on TV last week, right? For me, yeah. So that's great. So with the books that came out in the trilogy, this last book came out about a year and a half ago, like we said. Is there anything that surprised you about getting the third book out there? And did the feedback change? Did you find you picked up more readers because it looked like there was a complete story for them, or anything like that?
I have a great following, and my readers loved it. They wanted more. So I write pretty much like for my readers. I write because it makes me happy and it's my passion, but I also write for my readers. So I include my readers in a lot of different aspects of my writing.
And now, do you do like beta readers and stuff before you put it out to a group of people
Yes.
you go to? Yep. Okay. And then how does that work with their feedback? What is that process like?
I incorporate sometimes their feedback, or I will have like a round table, like, let's talk about it. Let me, and a lot of times I'm like, it's a different idea. It's a different concept.
Right.
And sometimes you'll even find it in my book, and I will even give them credit for it.
Right. Now, but do you listen? I have beta readers, I guess you call them, or people, and I all of their advice is gold and treasure, but I don't necessarily act on all of it. Are you the same way?
Yeah, I don't act on all of them, but I do like to hear what they are thinking.
Yeah.
And beta readers are supposed to kind of like see about your target audience, right?
Right.
And so I like to kind of poke and feel where they're coming from, and a lot of times they have good ideas, and a lot of times I just won't use their ideas, but I'll thank them for taking the time.
Sure.
But it wouldn't fit with where I'm going to go.
Right. Oh, I didn't ask you this, but how long does it take you to write one of these books, kind of from the first word to the last word?
I think it depends. Sometimes I may change my endings several times, many times. It all depends. Sometimes it could take 2 months. It could take 3 months. It could take 6 months.
Okay. Yeah, but you're right, Fat. We sound like we have a fairly similar style. Because if I'm writing a book much more than about 2 or 3 months, something's wrong. It might not be that good a book. I might have to go in a different direction, because the story, just like you said, the story is there, and you either get it on the page or you don't.
Correct.
Yeah. So what advice might you have for someone who thinks they have a book in their head, or has the same active imagination that you have, and their mind is racing, so you can't sleep nights, and you've got all these stories. How do you transition from having all that stuff up here to becoming disciplined enough to get it out there into a book?
I tell people, write it down. The minute you have an idea, write it down. If you have a quote that you really, really like, you don't know where you're going to be able to use it, but it's a quote that it really sticks with you, write it down.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm still old fashioned in some things. I still have my paper and pen. I love paper and pen. So, I write everything down.
Okay. And so like almost like a journal, just ideas, yes. Right? An idea book, I guess I'd call it.
Correct. Like, oh, this or that, but it's write everything down, because you can always come back to it later if it persists and the thought can grow.
Yeah.
But it's always better before you lose it. Just write it down.
I think that's right. That's it. That's good advice. All right. Well, Barb, I wish you nothing but success, especially with your book series. I'll have to start checking out Blood Prophecy.
Oh, thank you.
And we actually, we didn't talk about this. I know we're done, but we met at a Comic-Con, right? You're going to the Tampa Comic-Con here in a couple months.
I am.
Is that right? Yeah. So you're a big Comic-Con person, and we're both in Florida. So we're both enjoying this 300% humidity, 5,000 degree day.
Yes, I would say more like 400% humidity.
Well, you might be a little south of me.
That's true.
All right, Barb. Thank you very much. Nice talking to you.
Nice talking to you.
Bye.
Thank you for watching. Please consider hitting the subscribe button.